Within capitalism, a crisis emerges in which there is a tendency for the rate of profit to fall. This ironically occurs due to the development of the productive forces, as production becomes more efficient through advancements in automation and the machinery of production. The rate and ease at which commodities can be produced is significantly increased. Due to this, the value of a given commodity, being the amount of socially necessary labor time required to produce it, is reduced in kind. This decreases the amount of surplus value for the capitalist to extract. Because of this, there are numerous ways in which capitalists seek to resolve this issue in order to maintain a constant rate of profit. These can be increasing the working day and the number of working hours, cutting wages for the workers, or finding a cheaper way to procure raw goods, buying cheaper machines, and cutting production costs wherever possible. But none of these exploitative measures can fundamentally solve the trend of the rate of profit to fall. This created conditions in which capitalist entities sought out new markets and new economies in order to maintain their profits. However, an issue arose due to the inability to acquire enough capital to successfully relocate or expand into these new markets. Capitalism developed, and during its development, capital became consolidated and monopolies formed. The merging of this new monopoly industrial capital and monopoly banking capital became finance capital, leading directly to imperialism. How imperialism formed and the 5 criteria for imperialism. Imperialism, also called capitalism imperialism, is the latest stage of capitalism and occurs according to 5 criteria described by Lenin. Number 1. The formation of capitalist monopolies. These emerge after a period of laissez-faire, free competition capitalism, resulting in the consolidation of capital into fewer and fewer hands, creating capitalist monopolies. Number 2. The merging of industrial and banking capital to create finance capital. This occurs when monopoly industrial capital merges with monopoly banking capital to create finance capital overseen by a financial oligarchy. Number 3. The export of finance capital. Finance capital is then exported to other countries to dominate foreign markets, taking advantage of cheaper labor and unregulated industry in order to reap more profits for the financial oligarchy. Number 4. The creation of international monopolist capitalist associations. These are institutions such as the United Nations, the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. The purpose of these institutions is to manage capitalist monopolies at the global level. And finally, number 5, the territorial division of the world. The goal of imperialism is the completion of the territorial division of the world, and potentially redivision as different imperialist factions enter into conflict with one another for a larger amount of territory. Historically, this occurred as colonialism, such as the scramble for Africa. Today, however, it is neocolonialism that is the primary form of imperialism. More will be discussed about neocolonialism in a future episode, but the important lesson here is that imperialist powers seek world domination through international monopolist capitalist institutions to consolidate profits into the hands of international finance capitalists. Neoliberalism and global imperialism. Imperialism of the modern day primarily takes the form of neoliberalism. Neoliberalism was a series of economic policies enacted by Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher during the mid-1980s. Neoliberalism aims to create a global free market system by privatizing all global resources and dominating all global economies, overwhelmingly favoring the Imperial Core countries of Western Europe and North America. The Imperial Core countries of Western Europe and North America seek to expand and consolidate their financial dominion over the entire world through imperialism, neocolonialism, and neoliberal institutions, such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, as well as other international monopolist capitalist associations. The neoliberal project is therefore an imperialist project, global in scale and ruthless in form. And, like past forms of imperialism, it is opposed to any and all working class movements or progressive efforts to prevent the total domination of capitalism. Attempts from within the imperialized world to control their own economies through nationalization, unionization, or to establish autarky outside of the neoliberal system are brutally suppressed. Within the American context, the two ruling United States parties, both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, are both staunchly neoliberal, and there is no vocal opposition towards neoliberalism within the United States political system. When the USSR was illegally dissolved in 1991, neoliberalism was declared the end of history by bourgeois analysts. Capitalism had won, and communism had lost. At least, that is what most people assumed. Maoism is a revolutionary communism in this end of history era, and because of this, Maoists must have a detailed grasp of neoliberalism. The foremost force advancing the neoliberal project is the United States, which stands as the sole global superpower with nearly 800 military bases around the world and the center of global capitalism. However, the other countries of the imperialist core participate and assist the United States in expanding and consolidating neoliberal influence around the world. The imperial and imperialized worlds. The evolutionary development of capitalism leads away from free competition, laissez-faire capitalism, and towards the consolidation of capital into monopolies. Now, we must understand that the term monopoly does not mean the sole domination of a single company. It can also mean several competing capitalist enterprises enter into a syndicate cartel-style arrangement in which several entities function as a singular enterprise. Monopolies in industrial enterprises and banking enterprises merge to form finance capital enterprises, overseen by these syndicalist cartel arrangements, the financial oligarchy. You may ask, why are there countries which are developed and why are there countries which are undeveloped? The answer lies in the origins of capitalism, initially occurring in Germany and Britain, and expanding into the rest of Western Europe and North America. The early developers of capitalism created an environment in which capitalism could develop according to this evolutionary trajectory, from a laissez-faire system to the formation of finance capital and a financial oligarchy. These countries, Britain, Germany, France, the United States, Canada, and many others, became the Imperial Core, the countries where imperialism emerged and began to consume the economies of the undeveloped world. The undeveloped countries, largely dominated by colonialism, semi-colonialism, and semi-feudalism, were unable to repel the onslaught of imperialism. If they were in the process of developing their own native capitalism, this process was disrupted, and their own native development was stunted and co-opted to meet the interest of the imperialist project. This led to the emergence of Bureaucrat-Comprador Capitalism as the prevailing force of capitalism within the imperialized world. We will discuss more about Bureaucrat-Comprador Capitalism in a future episode, but the important lesson to note here is the fundamental difference between the imperial and imperialized world is the initial emergence of finance capital in the imperial core, and its export abroad to dominate the economies of lesser developed countries. In this manner, capitalism cannibalizes itself, and imperialism becomes a parasite on a global scale, with the bigger siblings of entrenched late-stage capitalism devouring the smaller siblings of developing emergent native capitalism, and parasitically dominating the economies of the imperialized world. In episode 1, we discussed the issue of Campism and how it applied to lesser bourgeois countries attempting to gain more control over their native capitalism and install rival imperialist projects. This is the tendency for certain countries within the imperialized world and for countries residing outside of the primary imperialist sphere of the United States and NATO. There is a knee-jerk reaction to support these lesser bourgeois countries and lesser imperialist camps, particularly amongst revisionist Marxist-Leninists. There are two trajectories a country could undertake to combat imperialism: descending backwards into feudalism, which would most likely result in the emergence of a petty bourgeois consciousness anyway, or ascend forward into the socialist project and aim to construct a new democracy. In a future episode, we will discuss the new democratic project and what it means for a country to emerge out of parasitic bureaucratic-comprador capitalism and advance onward onto socialism. So that about does it for episode 7. Thank you so much for watching. To review, we discussed the falling rate of profit and how this leads to the formation of imperialism according to Lenin's 5 criteria. We also discussed the modern emergence of neoliberalism and how it manifests on a global scale. And we discussed the difference between imperial and imperialized countries around the world. In the next episode, we will discuss the concepts of revisionism and anti-revisionism and its importance in the movement. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think about this video. And that about does it. Danky King out. Catch you next time.